Hi guys, I'm Mike.
And I'm Stephen.
And this is F1 Fanatics. Welcome back to another driver rivalries, the last one before racing returns in Austria. So we thought to ourselves,
Last one before F1 Fantasy. Oh yeah.
it's back. But we thought, if we're going to end this little segment of videos in the break, this extended break of content before a racing action has returned, we're going to need to do a big one.
Oh yeah.
And is there a bigger one than Prost versus Senna?
No.
All right, that's what Stephen said on it. But it is one of those great rivalries in F1 just because they were teammates, and in the kind of teammate bracket, you know they have the same machinery. I mean, obviously some of the rivalry, they went on to kind of be in different teams. But yeah, it was just absolutely brilliant how it started off friendly and then went downhill, and they were just really at each other. And two of the best talents to have driven in F1 were going neck and neck fighting for world championships, and it was absolutely brilliant to watch. Well, obviously we watched retrospectively.
Yeah.
Both of us weren't alive when it was actually happening, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
In terms of, yes, so driver rivalries. If you're new around here and haven't kind of found out rivalries, obviously this is part of a playlist. It'll be included, so you can check out previous episodes. And if you're new around here, you can subscribe to the channel, and you can click that bell notification to keep up to date with all our latest content. But how we do things on driver rivalries, we go through the stats. Then, as it's a big one, a big rivalry between the two, we're going to look at the rivalry itself and kind of compare the two drivers and who we actually think came out on top in this one. Then we're going to look at their race, qualifying, overtaking and defending before we give our conclusion and say who we think is better, Alain Prost or Ayrton Senna. God, it's a good one. I'm excited just saying that. So guys, we're not going to kind of waffle on too long because we love a good waffle.
We're just going to jump straight into it.
Yes, we are. So we're going to start off with Alain Prost stats. Here they are. Alain Prost, in his 202 races, managed to secure 4 world championships. He has 51 race wins to his name with 106 podiums, 33 pole positions and 41 fastest laps. In comparison,
Ayrton Senna had 3 world championships, raced in 162 races, had 41 wins, 80 podiums, 65 poles and 19 fastest laps.
Now, if we, look at the stats, Prost comes out on top. You know, if you're just a statistic man of going, he's got the more world championships, he's got the more race wins, he's got the more podiums.
Yeah.
Big 3 there. He wins on all 3 of those once. Pole positions though, Ayrton Senna, though racing in less races, clearly dominant and the second highest pole sitter I think of all time. I don't think Michael Schumacher beat Ayrton Senna on that one, although I might have done a big boo-boo and that could be wrong.
Uh-oh.
But Ayrton Senna was definitely the more impressive qualifier of the two. But that's coming in a later segment. That's jumping ahead.
Into it, not jump ahead of it.
I apologise for that.
Into it.
But we're looking at the rivalry now. So the main bit of this rivalry, although they'd kind of competed, Ayrton Senna didn't really have the machinery to fight with Alain Prost until he joined McLaren in the 1988 season. And in the 1988 season, you know, they were reasonably amicable. It worked well. They were pushing each other and they won 15 out of 16 races for McLaren. That's incredible.
Yeah.
That is absolutely unbelievable.
It was a dominant spell for McLaren.
Yeah. It was the start.
They probably had the 2 greatest F1 drivers of all time in the same car.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't going to necessarily bring bad results, though it nearly did, in terms of how it would go. But yeah, that was absolutely incredible. But Ayrton Senna came out on top in that season, beating Alain Prost, managing to win in Suzuka, passing Alain Prost there, and to score his first ever World Championship. Neck and neck the next season, it goes well. Then they have a falling out. Alain Prost thought team orders were that whoever went into the first corner would then be able to maintain the lead, and that would be they just got round and completed the Grand Prix. But Ayrton Senna led into the first lap time, but the race had to be kind of red flagged and restarted. Alain Prost then led going into the second restart, so he thought the deal was still in place. Ayrton Senna thought because he led into the first corner on the first one that he had the right to, and overtook Alain Prost and went on to win that race. And this is where the relationship between the two definitely began to sour. And it kind of, I think it was the Italian Grand Prix, Alain Prost took his podium trophy and threw it into the Tifosi crowd. Because he was going to move to Ferrari the following season. Probably not the best way to keep the team on side.
Yeah.
No.
It's debatable.
Interesting. But Alain Prost wins this 1989 season through, we did it in a classic race review, in what is only the most bizarre disqualification for Ayrton Senna. We have to say that it wasn't enough for Ayrton Senna, if he won the race, wouldn't have won the championship, but he needed to win it to kind of have a chance of winning the championship. And, you know, that went there. 1990, Prost is in Ferrari, fighting for the championship. Senna is still, obviously, at McLaren. Senna comes out on top this time, at Suzuka again, and this was probably Ayrton Senna's worst moment of his career. Because he just gun barrel straight went for Alain Prost.
He was just going quite quickly into the corner
and didn't brake.
The Prost and then Senna and
it didn't brake.
He took Prost out.
Yeah.
Hey, won the World Championship.
He certainly did. So that's now 2 to Ayrton Senna. Then in 1991, the Ferrari wasn't as competitive and Alain managed to win. Ayrton managed to win, securing his third and what would be his final world title. Prost took a year sabbatical after bad-mouthing Ferrari, essentially getting the sack, although I think it was noted as leaving on amicable terms. And he would then rejoin Williams, stating in his contract that Ayrton Senna wasn't allowed to be a teammate of his, which made Ayrton furious. And I think it's a kind of famous press conference that Ayrton he calls Alain Prost a coward, and this isn't how kind of racing should be.
If only they were both in the Williams. Oh,
that would have been incredible to see. But then we wouldn't have got maybe that 1993 Donington performance because the car would have been too good.
Well, maybe it would have been even better. Yeah.
I mean, he would have finished like 2 minutes clear. It would have been stupid. But Alain won in 1993, getting his fourth and final world title there. While they were in competitive cars, I'd consider it was 2-1 to Senna, although a little bit of conspicuous in there. But the rivalry itself, though it turned toxic and they really got underneath each other's skin, I think Ayrton Senna comes out on top of the rivalry because Alain Prost was smooth. Yes, he managed to win those world titles, but he had to manufacture his way that in a contract that Ayrton Senna didn't drive with him again. And he really got under his skin. And Alain was a smooth operator and was very good within teams. And how he kind of badmouthed Ferrari was kind of a little bit not really in his character, I would have said. beforehand, and it was just the way that the rivalry escalated with Ayrton that, you know, Ayrton really got under Alain's skin. And I think he would come out, the rivalry as a whole between 1988 and 1993, Senna would come out on top.
Argument done then. Video done.
No, that's not it done, because we look at their whole careers.
Yeah.
We're going, who's better overall in F1? So we're now going to look at race. And do you want to start Ayrton Senna on this one?
Incredible.
Right, okay.
Over to you. Senna, it's just trying to think of how to describe it. In the wet, in the dry, he had that flair. He had that Brazilian flair that he could take on anyone on the track. He just had the pace, the precision. I'm trying to think of more words I haven't said. It was great. There's so many highlights, so many best races of Ayrton Senna. You can go back and look. Trying to think of, we mentioned Donington, his 6 wins at Monaco speak for themselves really. The driver to win Monaco 6 times is probably enough said. One of the most technically challenging tracks.
Right, I suppose that's counter to me to
follow
try and
Alan.
to build up Alain Prost. Now you see, Senna has the romantic side of things. You know, he's the driver who pushes things to the limits. He's the one that makes people feel. He evokes emotion when he drives because, you know, he's exciting. Like you said, he's got those highlight clips. It's real. Alain Prost has his highlight clips to go as well. But what's so impressive about Alain Prost is he just is such an efficient winner. Like, he maximised his ability in the car. He was a little bit rash in his earlier days. I think a lot of people forget because obviously his nickname of Le Professor, you know, coming in later on in his career. But at the time that he retired, he was the most successful driver in terms of Grand Prix wins. He was one behind one-man Fangio's all-time drivers' titles. In terms of that, podiums 106 was mightily impressive. I don't know, I'd imagine that was the most in the history of the sport at that time as well. The guy just was an efficient and ruthless winner, and he didn't push the car to the limits like Senna did. He didn't drive on the edge. There aren't too many performances where you see like Prost coming from the back of the field, working his way through to claim first in like a last gasp moment or something. He just puts his car at the front of the grid, makes the moves, makes sure he leads the race, and efficiently does it. And both differing things, I think mightily successful. And I would say on this race as an overall, it would be a draw between the two.
Yeah, they both had very different styles of dominating races, basically. Prost, the less glamorous version, which is probably, well, we've never done a classic race review on Prost's wins. There's some great ones out there, but most of the time he does what needs to be done. He does it so well that it just looks effortless. But then Senna has that, you know, awe around it that you go, wow, that was incredible.
Yeah. So we move on to qualifying. We've hinted at this a little bit. I'll go Alain first to try and kind of bear up. Alain is a quick...
Oh, wait. I just remembered I had a stat to say in the races.
All right, go. Throw it in.
Bam. Senna, he holds the record for the most races where he's led every single lap.
19.
19. Could be beaten by Lewis, but at the moment, Senna holds the record.
That is a pretty incredible stat.
Beat that. I'm going to top that category now.
So I was going draw, and are you topping Ayrton Senna?
With that record, that stat drop.
Bam, the stat drop has come in. Qualifying. I'm going to try and define that. Look, Alain's a quick driver here. His pole positions were still impressive, getting 33. But his pace probably naturally more came in the races. As you can see, obviously in the stats, that you know, I was surprised at actually when I looked at it that he has more fastest laps in a race than what Ayrton Senna does. And so I think he was 42 to Ayrton's 19.
Yeah.
And so I think there are often drivers who are Saturday drivers. Lewis, for me, is very much a Saturday driver. And so's obviously Ayrton Senna. And Alain Prost is one of those very much Sunday drivers. He's all focused on the prize, which is gaining points on a Sunday. So his qualifying was still a strength. He was still naturally a quick guy. Getting 33 pole positions is still mightily impressive. But compared to Ayrton...
You've bigged me up enough. I don't even have to argue this point, Senna. I just kind of repeat what I said in the race one. He just is that awe, that the pace that he brought.
Well, I'm pretty sure when we did the Monaco track comparison video with Singapore, that you can't get it because it was the season before they had the onboards for the qualifying laps. But Ayrton Senna's 1988 Monaco qualifying lap, and I always say street circuits are the mark of a kind of qualifying. Yeah. They're the ones that are right on the limit to be the quickest at and are the most impressive for me as a driver. And in this one, I think he qualified a whole second clear of Alain Prost.
Yeah. There was quite a few of those in the rivalry. But Monaco, to find a whole second on your teammate, your rival.
And we knew how dominant that car was in 1988. That to me is mind-blowing, and he was almost like a man possessed. Like Ayrton was a speed demon.
Yeah.
Especially on a Saturday. He loved getting that one lap pace out of it. And certainly over one lap, he would top Alain Prost on that.
He was going for that perfect lap every time.
He was. Overtaking.
Well, there's only one place to start with overtaking in Senna. That's his quote. This may not be word for word accurate, but if you no longer go for the gap, you're no longer a racing driver. And that basically sums up Senna's overtaking performance.
That you're just going to drop the quote.
Stat drop in racing, quote drop in overtaking.
Bam.
You can. So many of his greatest races isn't Senna in pole leads. Well, he's got the record for most laps led in the lead, but some of his great races is him flying through the field. We had last classic race sheet. Well, no, the one before that at Donington, that first lap, one of the best laps in F1 history, just carves his way from 5th to 1st. His introduction to the world stage, the 1984 Monaco Grand Prix, the track that no one overtakes on, Senna just basically could have gone all the way to the first in that race. In an underperforming car. It's just, he always went for that gap.
I would say this is another one where obviously with race, that you had Ayrton Senna as the bolt, he's the flair, he's the guy that gets you excited. His overtakes go, wow, how did he make that move? It's incredible. Alain Prost, going back to, is the efficient overtaker. When he needed to make a move, he got the move done. And that's essentially all that overtaking should be. There is no kind of thrills or excitement around Alain. Obviously, he was still an exciting and enjoyable driver to watch, but he just got the job done, and I think that's with all these things. You know, Ayrton, but it's that mix with sport, isn't it? You know, sport is also, it's all about winning, but it's also an entertainment business, and Ayrton definitely brought the entertainment business, but Prost is the sportsman through and through. He's the efficient winner. So for me, this one is another draw because they're both polar opposites probably really in how they approached it, but both really effective.
That clash of driving style. The Flair versus the Professor. He basically picked up from Lauda, basically.
Yeah.
Because Lauda had that mentality of he knows what he has to do. He makes the moves and wins the World Championship. Prost kind of picked up from there. Other drivers like Nelson Piquet was a bit like that.
Yep.
Yeah. All world champions.
It doesn't matter how you do it, it's the fact that you win.
Yeah.
And those records kind of stay with you forever. But it's, obviously what's made people love Senna probably a little bit more is the way that how he won in some exciting fashion. But we'll move on to our last category before we get on to conclusions. And that is defending. And it's a tricky one for this because especially from 1988 onwards, well, for Prost especially, there wasn't really much defending to do. And I think it's fair to say they're both aggressive defenders. Obviously, Alain, I don't even think we can call it aggressive defending at Suzuka 89. But they fought tooth and nail for the leads. They very much didn't easily give up positions.
No,
they were difficult guys to overtake on the track. So I think that's a massive positive of that. And even if they weren't quite going right, it was still difficult to kind of get past each of them. But Senna's probably a little bit more crafty and clever in this. I remember, I think it was 93 or 92 against Michael Schumacher young Michael Schumacher in the Benetton, and he was playing with him. So I think it was at Brazil. They were coming up onto the main pit straight and start-finish straight, and Senna would let Michael Schumacher pass him, and then he would use the slipstream to then overtake him going into one. So gamesmanship is probably the way that Ayrton Senna goes. And again, I'll keep using this word for Prost, efficient. He made it very difficult. If you were going to overtake the guy, you were going to have to work for it.
Yeah. The showman versus the scientist. Showman versus
the calm calculator.
The calculator.
22 times 36, go!
I don't know, I'm Senna.
I'm Prost, I failed. Right, not sure what that was. Apologies. Do you have anything else to add to defending other than calculator?
I think you summed up quite well. It was they were both, most of the time they were fighting each other, and they weren't really defending against many other people. But yeah.
So, we move on to conclusion, and obviously by doing Prost and Senna, we've naturally focused on their rivalry, but obviously Senna had less of a career, but Prost started his career at the start of the 80s.
Yeah.
Came close to winning a championship with Renault in 83, almost won the championship, losing out by half a point to Niki Lauda in 1984, winning his first world championship in 85 and second in 86. Especially 86 was impressive because it was in a less superior McLaren to the Williams, taking advantage of Nigel Mansell's late puncture in the Adelaide Grand Prix there. But you have to remember all of that, I think, when comparing these two and who's better. And obviously, there was almost a little bit of Prost prime before Senna and him got together, and Senna's prime was a lot past Prost leaving McLaren in 1990. But yeah, your concluding thoughts, Stephen?
This is very tough because Senna's career was ended early, and Prost came so close to being a 5-time, 6-time world champion. Like that half a point in 84. Touched it with the Monaco race, getting red flagged early. It's so difficult. And it's the clash of styles. You can't really say which driver was better than the other because they were so different, polar opposites on the driver style scale, that you could say, oh, Senna was much better driver, he had the showmanship and whatnot. But then Prost, he dominated races. If that was in first, second or what, he dominated it, his world championships. That makes sense.
That makes sense.
That makes sense.
That makes sense. That's
Yeah.
good.
But yeah. Basically,
Who wins for you?
Ah.
Or do you want me to conclude and then we go together?
No, yeah, you conclude.
Okay. Well, I've thought about this one I would say very much before we started to do this video and kind of look into them both in a little bit more detail. I think I would always go Senna, and I think I still believe if we're looking at just talent on racetrack, obviously we did a couple of driver rivalries back in Alonso and Vettel. Vettel may have the statistics in his favour, but Alonso for me is the better and more complete racing driver. And Senna, well, Prost is maybe the more complete driver, but Senna was definitely the more talented out of the two. If you wanted someone, even if I wanted someone to drive my life, I'd be hard picked to pick between the two, because you both know that they're probably going to be efficient. If there was one in Senna in the rain, and that's probably was always the defining factor for me. Senna in the rain is, for me, the best of all time. Schumacher has had some incredible performances. Lewis has. But Ayrton Senna just... maybe it's because we've watched a lot of his classic reviews recently, but the performances, especially in those cars, were incredible in terms of what he could achieve and how he was almost driving a different race to those. 1993 is the perfect example. Prost has the far superior car, but always wanted to drive within his means and play it safe in the rain. Ayrton had to drive beyond his means and just outbeat him in the race. And, you know, he managed to finish that race. I think it was a minute 30, minute 20 seconds in the end, when other people were making multiple pit stops, including, you know, both the Williams, the Damon Hill and Prost. Now, I think they're just so evenly matched because they are polar opposites, and I think what we have to appreciate the fact is, you know, obviously we can't because we weren't alive at that time, but for those F1 fans who got to experience it at the time, it's a bit like looking for us Lewis Hamilton now, and obviously catching the tail end of Michael Schumacher's career. You just have to appreciate these were two of the best F1 drivers in the history of the sport, and they pushed each other on track to limits. They still would have been incredible without each other, but it's my belief that they pushed each other way beyond those limits. It's a bit like a football Ronaldo and Messi. They still would have been incredible players, but they've pushed each other to new levels of this kind of rivalry, and that's very much what I see with Senna and Prost. And even, you know, Prost reflects on it now. I think that it's difficult for him to talk about it because obviously with Senna losing his life in Imola 1994, you know, so tragically, he almost felt like a part of him was lost, because for his racing career, Senna had been such a big part of it. You know, how often do you hear, when you hear Senna, Prost goes hand in hand. They've made a legacy in the sport and a rivalry that's just so legendary. So for me, it's a rarity. I'll throw it back to you. It's a rarity. It's the first ever time we've done this in driver rivalries. It's a draw for me, because I think they're just both brilliant, and in their own ways, I don't think you can divide them because they both were incredibly successful. You can maybe go either way, but if Senna had finished his career, then I think it would be a stronger case for Prost. But because there's that what ifs, he may not have won any other world championships, but I think there's still that what if with Ayrton Senna, you know, on the statistic basis. But just of what we saw of them on track, they were like for like match for me. They were just incredible.
In Senna's words, "You're a coward." Walking away from a draw. I'm gonna have to go for Senna from my point of view. I can't join the draw here. Yeah, it is what if after 1993, but if Senna brought so many new fans to the sport in that era. His performances were beyond just the races. Prost was very good in the races, but I think Senna was a level above, and the fact that he's remembered so much now. It's like, yeah.
Well, you look at Michael Schumacher, massively looked up to Ayrton Senna. He broke down in tears, in the 2000 press conference when he equalled Ayrton's record, because it meant so much for him to be statistically at least on a par with Ayrton. And, Lewis Hamilton, although you can argue he's become more like Niki Lauda, Prost-esque in the way that he drives at Mercedes, his hero has always been Senna. The tributes that he has, he very much links himself to Senna, and to inspire two, or be so fondly thought of two of the finest drivers of their respective generations is probably, all you can say with that. Yeah, for me, I couldn't split him, but Senna.
Swain?
No, Senna.
Oh, okay.
For me, I couldn't split him, but Senna. He's a worthy winner there. But that's it. That's it from us. Conclusion: Stephen's gone Senna. I've gone draw. What do you guys think? It is, well, actually, I did ask. We had a poll, and Ayrton Senna came out. I believe it was 64% to work out the maths there. I think 36% would work in that favour. So, struggling to add up to 100.
He wasn't just a racer.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that transpires. Senna's legacy within the sport is maybe unfair on Alain. He should definitely, feel he's underappreciated for what he achieved in the sport. But the legacy that Ayrton's left is absolutely incredible to kind of look at. But that's it from us. We want to hear from you guys. We've heard that poll, but maybe you didn't take part in the poll. Who do you think is better, and why do you think they are better? Get involved in the comments below. It is a big rivalry, and it's been a brilliant one to kind of look into and do more. So get involved in those comments. But if they're new around here or haven't done so already, and they've enjoyed the video today, what can they do, Stephen?
They can like, they can subscribe, they can ding that bell.
Ding that bell, and we are obviously closing in on 1,000 subscribers. As time of recording, we're on 932, maybe more or less by this time that the video goes out. We don't know, because sometimes people unsubscribe, sometimes they subscribe, who knows. But yes, if you can help us push towards 1,000, we'd obviously massively be grateful on that one. It has been fantastic. But next week, it's the big return. F1 Fantasy Weekly is back. Obviously, there was excitement around it for the season. As things stand, we're the only ones on F1 YouTube with a dedicated podcast to F1 Fantasy.
Full fantasy.
We'll be there to get you prepared for the action in Austria and give your thoughts. Get those Kimi moments of the weeks back. Get those Kimi ratings back. Rate your team. We'll be back. That's it. Great rivalry. Draw. Senna. What do you think? Who, Prost?
Maybe you're a Prost.
You could be a Prost. But that's it from us, guys. So for now, you F1 fans, keep racing.